Is your phone on silent?
Yep.
Phone's on silent.
Yep.
Appropriate. Are you wearing sneakers?
I have sneakers next to me. I'm actually wearing flip flops. I thought about putting on sneakers because it make me feel more
You
productive.
just be careful you're not clicking and clacking all the way through. All right.
Heard. No.
And then are we cool for profanity? Is that
Profanity is allowed.
well fuck you then.
So let us begin. All right, and welcome again to Brother Sip.
Shit. This is always the second one. I just got water now.
Yeah, well, I just made another coffee, so we're gonna try that one more time.
Yeah,
Welcome to Brothers.
welcome
welcome to Brother Sip. And
Not really sure how to figure this out. Next round. Round two. The part two is always
the rough part.
Liquids are gone.
All right. Well, I'm T, and my favorite director kills a kid in every movie.
That was amazing foreshadowing. Couldn't even I'm V, and I don't even know how to respond. He's disoriented me with that comment.
Hey man, this is what you get. This is what you get when you pick.
Shape or form.
You pick the movie for my favorite director. I don't know what you expected.
I know.
Oh man! All right.
Okay.
We're about to discuss all things horror.
I finally have my sanity to make a mild.
Man, the moment passed.
Oh man, that is such a good.
You lost it.
Oh, actually, you know what? No,
I got this
one.
I got this one.
You got this one.
Hey,
I'm V, and sometimes I get disoriented by just good critiques and commentary.
Man, and we're here to talk about all things horror and foreign film. We're now talking about our foreign film. The last horror movie we covered was Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon from 2006, and now we're about to cover another movie from 2006. And
by the way, this is like the fourth week in a row I'm accidentally finding
syncing things
in
up.
Films.
I don't even know how this is happening, but it's happening. This is your movie, and you get to introduce it, albeit I probably know the movie better than you.
That is true. So this is a film by Guillermo del Toro. If you're not familiar with him, he is a very fun director, in my opinion. He's most notable for winning an for his third best film, which was Shape of Water. And I find all of his stuff pretty exciting, and we're going to dive into that. I think this film itself, in a nutshell, is you can just think of it as a Alice in Wonderland kind of twist. It's set in, was it World War II or World War I?
Two.
I think, yes.
Two.
So it's set in Spain in World War II, and it follows a girl who is the stepdaughter to a captain who has this village on lock. There's a few guerrilla movements in the woods that they're fighting. But the particular girl kind of has this, it's kind of like two movies are shot at once, which is pretty interesting. You have this World War II historical thing, and then you have this little girl going on Alice in Wonder-esque adventures, because the premise of the film is that the underworld's daughter surfaced to our realm and essentially is reliving lives over and over again, trying to make her way back to the underworld. So she kind of goes on these adventures because it's the gatekeeper to the underworld is here's some tests. Let's see if you're worthy to return. And that's kind of where the whole premise of that Alice in Wonderland vibe, she's doing a lot of that stuff. So overall, I'd say pretty interesting take on that classical story with a lot of different twists and turns. How would you give it a quick 1 minute rundown?
1 minute rundown. It is from my favorite director, Guillermo del Toro. It is a fairy tale. And I think in the truest form, most of the original fairy tales that were told were from the Grimm's Book of Fairy Tales, the most memorable ones, so to speak. And all of them truly had terrible, terrible endings, horrible things happening. Like the stepsisters had to dance in burning shoes until their feet came off, or was that Snow White? No, yeah, because the sisters in Cinderella got their eyes plucked out. All the original Grimm story tales, they were cautionary tales, or the people that were really shitty people, terrible things happened. It was all awful. It was always graphic. It was always terrible. And this is what you got from this. Again, told during World War II, really sad story about a daughter who lost her fathers, with her mother, who's with this captain, who's this ruthless Spanish captain in World War II.
I may have just like
Ruthless,
given him a little bit of credit there. Yeah, that
ruthless,
dude's a fucking asshole.
ruthless. He's
He's a
ruthless.
real. Let's just say he's definitely. I don't like to use this term because it's I don't like using the F word like that, but there's some fascist fuckery going on. You know.
Which F word was he talking about?
Yeah, that was the joke.
So it is told in this excellent way where she basically finds out that she's the princess of, we'll call him almost like the king of, we'll just call
It's
it the
definitely
world beyond.
it's definitely the underworld, for the record. Whether that underworld is like Hades or underworld is just like a cavern of people who exist magically under the ground.
Almost
I
like
think that's
the magical underbelly, the
yeah.
magical underbelly of the world.
I think it's I think it's less about like the devil, but more about like there's a magical place underground.
All of the things that we seem to forget. It plays strongly into her believing. The first thing that shows that she believes in this world beyond is she sees a grasshopper like thing and she thinks it's a fairy, and she eventually gets this grasshopper thing to transform into a fairy to show its true form. She goes out there with her mother so her mother could have the baby with the captain. The particular area they go to, there's a labyrinth. She goes through the labyrinth.
For the record, I haven't watched this movie ever, and the primary reason was because I started this film like 10 years ago, and he beats a dude to death with a wine bottle like 10 minutes into the film, and I was like, that's just like too much. Yeah, it was like 11:30 at night. I was like, this is just like way too dark right now. Like, and not even like scary, just like so negative. I can't deal with this character. And then it took me a decade to pick it back up again because of that one scene. Like, it is so they set the tone of how terrible this el Capitan, as they would say,
Yeah, El Capitan.
is Capitan
El
is
Capitan
just
Viral.
terrible human.
But you know, the most amazing thing about that, and it's very important, is that Guillermo del Toro is showing you that war is ugly and dirty, and the captain is basically, they've taken over a town probably for strategic reasons. They're looking for rebels, and they're probably just supposed to hold position in this particular place. That's all I can think about. It's probably a strong foothold.
But he's taking in some extra. Like, he doesn't do all this extra stuff. Like, all he has to do is hold the city on lock. But instead, he's got to be like this emperor of this small town and woodland village, which kind of shows that corruption of power, you know.
But it shows how little they thought of it. They didn't care about the people in the village. They basically were there to, like, and I'm gonna focus on this story, and then we'll get to the we'll get to
well, yeah, because I do want to reiterate,
right?
One of the marvelous things he does in this film is he's telling two very separate stories,
very separate, but it all flows together so smoothly.
But
there's
they're kind of like
no disjoint.
He's going. It feels very. It's almost like a dance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Very like the acrobatics. I mean, not even a dance. Kind of like the. It's very artful with the acrobatics, like back and forth. It's very nice, and I think the girl technically is in both stories.
Yes, she is, absolutely. So, okay. Captain taking over a village, World War II, is supposed to be there to hold this village down. They're going ahead and treating these people like shit. They got them down to the point where they have to get food vouchers from the captain and the soldiers there to be able to eat. At some point, they give it down to one voucher per family. So basically one meal that the whole family has to share. At some point, other dignitaries come and visit this little village, and one of them includes like a priest and a couple other ranking people. They're discussing decreasing the amount of food they give them over a large feast where they're eating food almost unlimited, just picking out and talking about how little they're going to give these people. Leads heavy into fascist regime, shows how it's going to be awful. He's cruel. He kills a guy with a butt of a thing because the soldiers that captured him didn't check his story to make sure his story was true enough. And since they didn't check to make sure that his story was true, that the old man was just out hunting rabbits, he killed the old man's son and the old man because the soldiers didn't do a better job at just vetting to see if they were really out there hunting for rabbit, and then eats the rabbits. It's just it's just, I mean, just overall like, cruel.
Anytime these military folks kill someone, actually no, I think the rebels did it too, is they just don't shoot them once. They
Oh, you
go
got
to
to
the
confirm the
body,
kill, man. They
and
gotta
they
confirm the
just
kill
like unload a full clip on them. Like it's
in the head.
so
They
yeah,
always go for
yeah,
headshots.
and it's very again it gets to that point of like war is very real. Like this is a very real, and I think it sets a nice tone. Like I love that this film was rated R. If this movie came out
There's no way it could have been anything else.
10, 15 years later, and again this is like that. I'm going to talk about Guillermo del Toro probably too much during this session, but this is one of those moments where I love guys like them because most directors, if they got a big budget for this or finally got it, and if it was made in America, they would want to it been PG-13. So I think like a lot of the reason why this film is formed because he makes films in Spanish and English, which is also amazing as well. I think the reason why he went foreign with this one was because he was able to be darker. I don't think they would have let that
No.
fly. I just want to take a moment to applaud him for his artistic integrity.
How about
There we
this?
go.
It was originally supposed to be darker. It was originally supposed to be about the mother falling in love with the fawn in the labyrinth and then sacrificing her kid and herself so they can live in the afterlife happy.
Oh my lord.
Yep.
I
See?
love it. It's
So
marvelous.
just to finish up, the captain's whole thing is that he's just ruthless. He's doing what he is. He walks around with this stopwatch that his father had died with, because his father wanted to remember what time that he died and remember that how a real man is supposed to die. And it's just all just awful, awful things. Along while this happening there's a couple of people, a doctor and one of the main maids that are working with the rebel group, bringing them supplies, this, that, and the third, trying to get them there and trying to get them to eventually take back the town. That's a strong underlying story. In the end, the rebels do take over the town. A lot of lives are lost in the process along the way, and the captain is shot in the head, his baby taken from him, and he wants his baby to remember his name and when his father died, and the rebels are like, they won't even know your name, and pop him.
Won't even know you exist.
Just won't even know you exist, and pop him and wrap him up. Excellent on that. That is a great story in itself. The real story is about the girl. So the girl, Ophelia, who eventually finds her way into a labyrinth, finds a fawn. This fawn, who is not technically Pan, it's technically just a fawn, but we'll call him Pan, who's one of the oldest gods of the forest. The fawn is telling him, hey, you're the spirit of the princess of the underworld. We need to get you back there, but we have to make sure that you're not too human and that your spirit is still pure enough to come back down. So it gives her a book, and they have 3 tasks that she has to complete. First task is when she's supposed to be going to this dinner, she's all dressed really nice. She ends up having to go to this tree, feed a toad some jewels. The toad spits out a key, and the key is used for the second task. The second task the fawn gives her to get some chalk. The chalk is to open a door through a wall to go to the secret place where there's a huge feast in this wild looking creature, which is one of the greatest film horror creatures ever. But I'm gonna get off that. I'll get back to this.
To not be a horror film.
And she's told she's not supposed to eat anything off this glorious feast, but she uses the key that she found earlier to find a knife. She finds the dagger, and she ends up eating 2 grapes. This awakens the monster. The monster chases out. She almost doesn't make it out of this place.
I'm sorry. Can one go back here? Mm-hmm. There's a moment when she is choosing which lockbox to open with the key, and she decides to go with the one on the left. Was she supposed to get a dagger, or was there some other mystical item? Did they ever say that?
I don't think they necessarily said it, but I think she chose it because 3 of them, they almost look different, almost as like a 3 little pigs type doors, small little doors that she opened. And I think she went for the most humble looking one, and she knew that was the one because she knew. Like, and I think it's part of knowing that she was the true princess. She knew it was the right thing to make the choice. Not the 2 other little bit more elaborate doors. She went for the most janky one, and I think that's sort of the humility.
The pauper approach.
Yeah, exactly. She gets this dagger. Her mother starts getting very sick before this baby is born, and the fawn gives her this mandrake to put underneath the bed in some milk, and she's supposed to feed it 2 drops of blood and ends up making her mother feel better. The captain eventually finds this mandrake, tosses out, and the mother gets sick. The mother dies having her baby brother. Now, just a reminder, Ophelia's father is not the captain. Her captain was a tailor that died, but that's not really shown as much as it's told. She doesn't really have her real father there, so there's a dissociation with that. She eventually gets back, and the fawn meets her again, and the fawn is like, hey, you ate some of the grapes, and because they lost a couple fairies, here or there. I know I'm skimming through that part, but it's just beautiful. You got to watch it.
He's not doing it justice because I think the coolest part about
Is seeing it
this
yourself.
storyline is the visuals, like the costume designs, and like it's marvelous to see someone's Del Toro is like notorious like a sketch artist. Like he likes to draw out
Oh,
all
it's
his scenes. He's
beautiful.
one of those guys.
All
And
right,
to see like some of his early thoughts in a paint like in a sketch to then make it to the screen and look exactly the same is like
amazing.
marvelous.
To sum it up, the last thing she has to do is the fawn isn't going to let her go because she ate grapes. She didn't follow the rules. She ended up getting chased by that monster, and he gives her one more chance. And her last chance to actually get there is to bring her new baby brother, which requires him stealing the baby brother from the captain into the labyrinth and then having to take some blood from the baby. Now, when she finally does get the baby there, the fawn is like, okay, so we're just gonna stab the baby, we kill the baby, we use the blood, we open the portal, you get back to underworld, everything's all cool. And she's like, no, you can't do that. I'm not gonna let you kill my little brother. In that time, the captain chases her down, gets the baby back, and shoots Ophelia dead, which movies don't do that, period. Horror movies, real life movies, everything like that, they don't show you typically that kids will. There are very few ones that do it to show you that kids die. This captain just shoots this girl dead. And you're like, oh shit. And
To
then
add to just how terrible this human being is,
he just
like just
shoots the girl dead.
kills a child, like for what? For being a little bit annoying?
Yeah, for a little bit, a lot knowing to him. He eventually takes the baby, and that leads to his death, as described earlier. But as she's dying, she's bleeding out. The blood ends up dripping into the labyrinth, into the portal opens up. She's brought to the underworld. In the underworld, she's dressed again as a princess. Come to find out that she was supposed to not let the baby die and was supposed to sacrifice herself, and that showed that her spirit was still truly alive, and it earned her the right to be the princess. Crazy thing is that when she gets down there, the queen of that underworld looks just like her mother, which is an interesting thing that turns it into then, is this movie really real? Is it just this girl's imagination, the second and third? So I skimmed through this because watch the film. That's all I'll say before we even get
Yeah,
to the review.
it is visually stunning.
I will never do it justice by saying what it is. You have to see it. You have to understand what it is. And I'll talk
So
about
do you
the
want to talk
visual
about the
effects.
visuals? Or do you want to talk about that?
First,
Because you know,
first we'll talk about
tradition,
visuals.
we're going to talk about the ending. I know we're going to talk about that ending.
So
Yeah, so there's this moment where, again, she looks a lot like the queen, looks a lot like her mother. The Capitan walks up to her as she's talking to the fawn, and you see nothing through his like lens of view. And then also it's like, well, she got shot. Is she just dying? And this is just her last like thoughts of what death looks like. I'm gonna my answer is in the spirit of fairy tales. I think it was really magical. Like I do think it was magical, though. It does add that question of like maybe it wasn't. Maybe she was just imagining. But I think no. I think the beauty of it is he wanted you to think that it was just a girl's imagination because that's what's so magical about it.
it's a fairy tale, and a fairy tale means that the ending actually happened. There's no fever dream. There's no waking up or everything like that. That's just the way the fairy tale was. It was a brutal fairy tale, and there had to be death involved to actually get to the happy ending of the fairy tale. To get to the true ending, her corporal self had to die, but it's the truth. Plus, Guillermo del Toro said that it's real. So
Okay, cool. I'm glad that he's like throughout the film makes you see this lens of maybe she is imagining things like
it's fair.
maybe it's just her mind running wild and all this stuff. I truly enjoyed the way that he didn't give it again, he didn't lean one way or the other too hard.
He just told the tale. There's another movie I won't mention, and I won't mention it because I will not talk ill of this movie. There's a recent movie that's kind of praised. I don't like it because at one point at the end of the movie, there's an exposition that explains everything. Sometimes you don't have to explain shit to me. Just leave it to my interpretation. Leave it to everything that's like there, and then if you paint the picture well enough, then I'll come to a close enough, if not the right conclusion of what it is. So the reason why I think it's real, the realest part about it, reason I think it is really real is the mandrake. Because when she put the mandrake underneath the bed, it healed her mother. The second shit started going ill with the mandrake, her mother ended up getting sick. And the happenstance was forward that it work that way as opposed to backwards. So you get what I'm saying? If the mother got sick
Yeah.
and then something happened to the mandrake, then I'd be like, okay, maybe it's just like her trying to associate it and saying that's why it happened. But since the mandrake was destroyed first, that was the cause and effect.
Yeah, and it was so marvelously done. Like you said, the dark tones of like the grim fairy tales, like they're supposed to be these dark stories, and it plays to like that. Man, back in the day, they loved telling like tragic things. Back in the
Yeah,
day,
because
people were so dark.
cautionary tales, man, cautionary
Yeah,
tales. One visual I thought
yeah,
that was
yeah.
excellent is that she has a book, and the book gives her directions on what to do next only when she's alone. The pages are blank otherwise. At one point, when things are going crazy with her mother, she opens the book, and the book starts turning red. But the book looked like ovaries bleeding. And that's what it started looking like. And at first, when I first watched the film, I didn't realize that. When I looked at it now, it was bleeding the ovaries, and then the mother starts bleeding. And that's when the mother originally got sick. And the book was showing what was going to happen, and just the fact that it showed that uterus showed everything bleeding out of her, and I'd never noticed that on the first thing. I thought that was actually visual.
Yeah, I think the classic thing that I enjoyed was the CGI was really good.
You know,
But
there
I
was
think
a
it's
lot of practical effects, though, right?
yeah, because and I was gonna say is I think he like mixes practical effects with CGI to make it look like he hits that nice ooey gooey, warm center in the middle type vibes. And I always like to think that like CGI can be so trash, dude. Like I am not a fan of CGI in film, and take it or leave it. Maybe I'm just like one of the old crusty guys. It's like, nah, the shot's meant to be of the barren wasteland for 15 minutes looking at the mountain as the sun slowly sets. Like, I think that in modern times, CGI is used like terribly too much. But this, he uses these practical effects. Like, I think that the monster, the scary looking feast monster, was like a little bit more practical effects, while like the fawn was definitely CGI. But since he's using a mix of both,
No,
it kind of.
the fawn. I'm gonna stop you there.
Or did I have it backwards?
Here's the thing. Neither one of them. They were both
Neither.
practical effects. There were only
really?
small things that were in there, like the eyes of, we'll call it the pale man. There's the fawn and the pale man, and the two most recognizable thing. The eyes of the pale man that are actually in his hands, and he holds them up to his face.
Oh, that's the feast monster.
Yeah,
That's
the pale man. The pale man. Those are CGI. The
Gotcha.
thing that you have to recognize, and this is something I know just excellently with Guillermo del Toro, whenever you get a director, really good directors tend to work with the same people over and over again. Christopher Nolan does it with all the same people. Tarantino does it with all the same people. When we talked before about Mother and Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, I'm gonna get his name right, one or another. He uses a lot of the same actors. I think the best directors pool into the same actors all the time, except for Michael Bay.
You don't think Megan Fox is
except
a
for
stud,
except for
A-lister?
but one character that he always uses all the time, one person he always uses, is an actor by the name of Doug Jones. If you do not know who Doug Jones is, V, please look it up, because you've seen Doug Jones in just about every movie that you've probably seen a creepy creature or tall person.
Is this going to be a Tim Curry moment?
This is Tim Curry times 100, because you've seen Tim Curry in a whole bunch of things you didn't realize. You've seen Gary Oldman in a whole bunch of stuff you never realized. But you've got to realize you've seen Doug Jones in everything. You want to know what Doug Jones was? Doug Jones was the Pale Man. Doug Jones was the Fawn. Doug Jones was Abe Sapien in Hellbone. Doug Jones was a sewer imp in Doom. Doug Jones was one of the monsters in Lady in the Water. Doug Jones was the Silver Surfer. Doug Jones was the thin infected man in Quarantine. Doug Jones was, I could just go on for days. He is a tall, slender man. I think he's the Slender Man.
I think literally he may be the Slender Man.
He is
a very slender individual. Very
slender.
Who was he in Batman Returns?
He's everyone. He's everyone. He was Deathbolt in the Flash.
In Tank Girl?
He's in everything. He's in every single one of.
Hold on a second.
I'm telling you, he's everywhere.
Mystery
He's in the Strain. He's in Ouija. He's a.
Oh my God! No, yo, That's the dude from Mystery Men.
He's the dude from every. He's the Bye
Bro,
Bye Man.
I forgot about him in that film.
I just want to keep on going. I just want to do it. He's in What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah,
He's
he's
Star
in
Trek.
Doom. John dies at the end.
If you've seen
What?
a horribly moving, creepy moving, everything like that, it was Doug Jones, and he was in there, and it's
Interesting.
practical effects, and he is actually worked up in there. The only thing that may have been CGI on the fawn may have been his legs, at the bottom part of
Yeah,
his legs. But I just want you to say
practical
practical
effects.
effects.
Had that distinguished honor of going to a museum out here on the West Coast.
I actually
That
thought it was
was
excellent.
that. Oh yeah, you were there too,
Yeah,
correct?
we went. Yeah, I still got the
Yeah,
pictures.
yes, you were there with me, and
Come
I
on, I
thought
love
that
it.
was like a cool step into. So Del Toro essentially just curated like a art exhibition of just his collectibles. Such a nerd thing to do.
Hmm.
He's like, oh, let me show you all my cool collectibles. So it was really cool to like step in, and he had I think he had the fawn from
Yep.
this film,
Yeah, the fawn
like
was
a
there.
live, like
The
like a
seer
full
from
full size,
Golden
which was
Hellboy
really
Golden
interesting.
Army
Yeah, yeah, and seeing like what I found
drawings.
most fascinating was they had his sketchbooks there, digital. So they like digitized all his like sketchbooks. He's one of these artists that always carries around a notepad with like all these different coloring pencils and all this. At any moment, he may have a stationary, imaginative moment. And flipping through those early drawings, and then knowing the films he did and seeing that like the final form was pretty interesting to see like part of that process. Personally, he gave me a really big appreciation for what he does. I
Hmm.
think the only the only thing that I always joke around with, but it's really true, is that like he definitely has a particular art style where he has these characters that look very similar movie to movie.
Hmm.
I've just realized they're all characters played by Doug.
Doug Jones. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Doug Jones plays all the same character. He plays these same shaped characters, which he's just really into like
He's good at it.
amphibious, like humanoids. I say they're more like amphibious than anything else, right?
Not really,
Um,
because if you got he always pays. I'm telling you, the tall. It's not necessarily amphibious. It's just about the lanky, the that almost stretched out look. That it's just a little too tall, a
almost
little too
alien, almost
long.
like
Yeah,
alien, like
that's fair.
traditional.
Alien in a sense
Um,
of not making you comfortable.
yeah, one other visual thing I think that is pretty awesome about this guy is the gothic approach he takes. I don't think I really I can't really think of anyone who really goes super super hard at gothic
No.
art at the level he is. I thought it was really interesting that a lot of it is because he he has trauma from growing up in a traditional Roman Catholic upbringing
Hmm.
in Mexico, which are like, oh, that makes so he literally Gothic Catholicism is horrifying to him. That's why he reflects it in his like style because he loves horror as well. Which I'm just like, oh, this dude is genius. He's seeing things through lenses that no one else can is what makes you such a great artist.
Right.
And using trauma of a Roman Catholic upbringing to then make horrifying features and visuals based off of that is pretty amazing. I'd say, yeah, pretty cool guy.
It's a great film. You ironically picked, in some views, it's a horror film to a lot of people.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a horror film. I would just say that
You could have fantasy horror. I think it definitely classifies as fantasy horror.
what it is like it's because it's so like dark. Like don't
Mm.
be wrong, maybe it is kind of a horror film, but I think it's more of his one of his inspirations is horror. He's one of those guys that like grew up reading Swamp Thing and like Frankenstein's his favorite book. He loves the genre,
He
so I just
worked
think that
really hard
I
to get scary stories told in the dark. That movie made. He worked really hard for it. It'd been on his
yeah
to do list for a long time. And
yeah. So
if you want to see the difference, watch Blade 2, then watch Blade 3. Which one's better?
oh my
Guillermo del
god,
Toro did the better one between Blade 2 and 3. Watch the first
wow.
two Hellboys, and then watch New Hellboy. You tell me which one is better, and you
I
could
haven't
tell all
watched
the
that
reasons
one.
why it's better because the same man did it.
I can't even take myself to go see that new Hellboy because I'm just like, why?
I've tried to watch it
Why?
twice. I couldn't get through it. I couldn't get
It
through
was
it.
that bad.
I like it's just you don't have designer come in after Biggie just did a verse. You'd be like, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing?
What are
Are
we
you
doing?
lost?
What are
Are you
what's going on?
lost? Even if it was designer's best verse ever, he just came in behind Biggie, so it doesn't matter.
There's two Brooklyn guys, but nah, man. Nah, man.
One of the views is
So
different. I'll let you tell it.
okay, so yeah, and I think that this was an interesting film to pick. Though I need to, man, I've been picking some real dark films.
Yeah,
This
you
is like
have.
the third
This
third
year.
week in a row I've picked a pretty dark film,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's because again I'm drawn to these like tragedies, and I do secretly actually my favorite films to watch are Spanish films because I don't know Spanish. I am Latin, but I don't know it. But it's just fun to attempt to think I know what people are saying sometimes. So I truly enjoyed that aspect of this film too. I'm curious if there's any like translation stuff
Fun.
between Spanish and English that I missed.
You didn't, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because he did the subtitles for the film.
Oh, he did.
Guillermo del Toro
Man,
did the
this guy
subtitles
is
for the film.
good. He is man. This dude is a stand-up fellow. He's a stand-up fellow.
I mean, all I was gonna do is stroke the greatness of this movie, only because you pick my favorite director, and I had no choice but to do it.
It's
All
that
right,
time of
so
day.
so remind you one more time, we're about to get into our review system. Usually, we get a couple of questions in, and then we talk our review. Our reviews usually go: one, I wouldn't tell anybody about this movie. You could just go ahead, throw it away, lock it away in a safe. Don't tell the world about it. Two, watch it again, or maybe bring one person with you to watch it. Somebody you know you will like this. You don't want to venture too out, but I definitely watch it again myself. Number three, tell the world about it.
Awesome. So I'm going to steal a question from last week because again we picked a pretty notable director. I'd say the first question is what about his style? Because again, this is one of his earlier big hits. I would say. What would you say is a style that you saw improve over time? You pick the later film you want to compare that style to. So like this one thing from Pan's Labyrinth, you saw he worked on, or it was like
I got it.
the origin of it.
So
So
he likes telling stories. He's a storyteller. He tells fairy tales. You can even take it to something like Pacific Rim. He's telling a typical anime story. He's telling the story that you see every time you watch something. He has gotten to the point where he's honed how concisely he could tell that story and how much more fun and accessible he can make the story. Pacific Rim was a hit because they wouldn't let him make Transformers, they wouldn't let him make Voltron. He said, "Fuck all y'all, I'm gonna make my own fucking movie." He took all the anime tropes that you've seen everywhere, and for people that have seen tropes, the same people that have read fairy tales and seen those same fairy tale tropes, and he learned so much later on how to translate them perfectly. He got them down to a perfect science, and that's why they wanted to make another Pacific Rim, and that's why the second one was trash. Because
he is like
he's
he's
a
like a
storyteller.
good Nashville chicken sandwich. Like yes, I've had hot chicken, don't get me wrong. But the ones who make it like far superior than everybody else, man, they add like a whole other levels to this. Like I didn't even know we can get there. And again, you're right, he's just like taking these base
And he could do it
stories of
where
concepts,
it's
but
the
does it so
non-spicy Nashville and make it
interesting.
super spicy, and they're both delicious now. He's figured out how to make that. He knows how to make that base still well. So that's what I'll go with there.
Number two is you had mentioned this was possibly a horror film. What rules of horror did we see in there? What rules were there? I didn't see any rules. Tell me some rules you saw.
There's the rules about establishing the big bad and also having the survivor girl. Even though she died, she was a survivor girl because she survived in the afterlife. She got that thing and she sacrificed, and she was stronger than him. Now she didn't physically kill him herself, but she set him up in a position so that he could end up dying.
And the
We
big
got it
bad
there.
was just a human.
The big bad
So
was
good.
the ruthless cap.
So good.
I don't think we tell him justice about how ruthless his captain is. He is.
But he there's a point in the movie where he gets his like cheek slit open, like the Joker smile,
Yeah,
essentially.
he gets the half joker.
And he just looks in a mirror and sews it up to himself. 'Cause
So to
it's just
himself,
that.
and then takes a shot. It
Takes a
burns the
shot.
shit out of his mouth because it's clearly
Takes
antiseptic. And what does he do? He pours another shot.
Takes
like
another
there's another point when
Right.
he's going after the rebels. They're going after the rebels, and old boy is the front line for shooting at the rebels. He's awful, but he's a G. I gotta give him that. He's awful, but he was a G. His other people, he's over there next to his other people. And he's like, we gotta press forward, man. This is where we do it.
All right.
If we die, we die
By
here.
the way, since it's your favorite director of all time, you're gonna get a bonus question. What was your favorite non-magical visual?
I want to say one of the greatest visuals is the way he sets up when Ophelia first gets there. When she first gets there, there's a lot of shots, and he introduces all of the characters by camera angles. He's not necessarily doing everything. Mercedes, who ends up being a very important person. Shots, he's showing you the important characters, and all the shots that go into that are just excellent. That, or when he finds the vial of antibiotic, the doctor was one of the rebels, and he finds a vial of antibiotic that he had found with the rebels, and he's so smoothly takes it out of the doctor's suitcase and then goes and compares to the other shit. Just the way he moved, the El Capitan was was brutal, man.
Yeah, but that shows that he's ruthless, but he's not just like mindlessly
Oh,
making
he's
decisions.
calculated. He is
He's
calculated.
calculated, very well calculated, and that particular moment shows like he's not just gonna lose his temper and do something like these aren't temper tantrums. This guy is just evil. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and he's well calculated, and I think that subtle thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that shows that he's just not mindlessly doing. He's not just saying this fucking just
All right.
raping and pillaging villages. No, no, no. He's well calculated, but he is brutal, very brutal.
One thing I think of right now, and I just thought about it. Probably one of the other ones is the two different feasts. The feast where Ophelia wasn't supposed to eat anything off, and she only ate 2 grapes, and the dangers that came with that. And the feast that all of the like military and the religious people had together, while they're discussing how little they're going to give the people out there, and they're just stuffing their faces to just show those two different things. The main characters of those scene went through that feast was important. And I think that
Gotcha,
was a
gotcha.
very good visual. So yeah,
And where we at for rating?
3.5. I mean, I didn't know it was gonna take long for that. I say this and I stick by this. Too many directors now are winning.
I thought we didn't say. You better bleep that out. We don't bring those capitalistic industrial complexes into this.
So
The only thing I like industrial is my coffee in the morning.
he,
All right.
he always says this after he has said first, but nah,
I don't think I said it. I think I
you did.
purposely didn't
Nope,
say it.
you said it. I'm gonna have to, and I'm gonna go back and bleep it out just because you said it.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. I thought I purposely didn't say
nope,
it.
you said it.
My bad.
So it's honestly the movie he should have won an award for. Parasite was the movie that Bong Joon-ho won one for. He should have definitely won this for award. I have to double check, and while you're answering the questions, I'm going to go ahead and see
And
what.
see what was done that year. It is
Yeah.
very interesting to see what else. I think he was nominated. I just don't think it won because it was a foreign film. Because they're just like that with foreign films. No love.
For clarity, Crash, Capote, Munich, Brokeback Mountain, and Good Night and Good Luck.
And what won it?
Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah, okay, that seems like what they would do. Of course, they would do that.
No, I think it was Crash. I think Crash won it for that particular one. Either way, it wasn't. I don't even think it was nominated. So
It wasn't nominated. Oh, well, because it was a foreign film. They just didn't give foreign films love like that, man. I'm gonna give this an extremely, extremely high 2. And again, the only downside to it is pretty magical, and it also is extremely dark, which is not very. I think for you and I, we have the something for it, but I would definitely know a lot of people who, again, would still find this a little bit slow paced just because of like all the magical themes and stuff. Extremely high too, though, like extremely. It's almost there, almost there, just like a hair late, a hair short. 2.9999999999999.
that's fair. I'm gonna be mad.
Again, I love the film, but I like to rate it as if I need to convince someone else to watch this. That's the rating I give it. Is like how convincible is it someone to watch this? It's a weird way to rate things. Because if I had to rate things, I don't know. Maybe I don't have opinion. Maybe we're going down a dark hole.
For the record, it won. It did at the though win best cinematography, best art direction, and best makeup.
Okay. So we did win something, which is good.
He won for The Shape of Water, which when he was up there and he accepted the award for it, he was like, "I really deserved it for other things, and y'all really want to give it to me for this." That's some real G shit to be like. You wanted to give me the award for this.
Drops.
I did Pan's Labyrinth though. No, he didn't drop the mic. They tried to play him off, and he was like, "No, stop the music. I've waited long enough to get up here." Guillermo del Toro was a G. Quick questions: how do you rate this in other Del Toro movies you've seen? How do you feel about this one in the range of it?
In the range of it, I would say this is. I need to go watch some of his more like serious things because I just love like Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim is-
and I'm glad you brought up like the magical story. Like he takes these like generic storylines, but his imagination is like it's that old adage of that college chef that was dope. Like he could take like ramen, some mustard, and fucking duct tape, and then I got this like crazy ass meal I didn't even know. Like he's able to take such these base elements and add this like crazy imagination to it that I truly enjoyed. And this echoed it as like this was his example of a fairy tale, which I can't even think of anything that compares to it in the last like 20 years. Like, is there any other fairy tale films like this?
This is up there. I've seen horror adaptions and other people try to do stuff like that, even more animated things. But to tell a gothic fairy tale like that, I don't think it was.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
plenty
it
of
is
fairy tales, but gothic fairy
imaginative.
tales.
So I enjoyed this film. I need to still watch a few other films in his
Repertoire
catalog.
heard.
Yeah. But overall, I'd say that this is up there. This is like the top one. And the reason why I don't put it over Pacific Rim because I just think Pacific Rim is the coolest. That's my nerdum. My nerddom can't do it. He literally gave me everything I needed
He did.
in an animated live action. If only everybody,
The best scene
everybody who's
the
ever
best
wanted
scene
to
in
make a live
Pacific
action
Rim.
anything,
The best scene in Pacific Rim.
if only the director that who shall not be named watched Pacific Rim before he then destroyed one of the greatest American animes gone live
Yeah,
action,
yeah,
which we will not be naming either,
yeah,
but you know what I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
It won't
If
say it.
only because Pacific Rim was just
Best
marvelous,
part about
marvelous.
Pacific Rim, when they were like, I was like, man, it'd be really good if they had a sword right now, and they were like,
And there's a
use the
sword.
sword. I was like, yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, this movie's great.
What's your last question here?
The last question. Answer one of your questions on this one. So what is your favorite visual you take away from all of
There
it?
was a scene with the dress where she's got this really nice dress for the dinner party, and she decides to go exploring for this toad for her first task. And it's pretty muddy, which I also find it interesting that the two muddy scenes this week is what I found the most visualizing.
Mm-hmm.
Weird how my brain works sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But she hangs up this nice dress, and there's like this like pollen floating in the air, and it kind of looks like it's snowing, but it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be like forest pollen, which I thought that that was an interesting shot of snow. Snow is magical, right? It's these
Mm-hmm.
unique little droplets. And I feel like he was trying to make the pollen look a lot like snow to give you this like wonderful escape, magical feel that she's about to go impart into this base of the tree trunk to hunt for this toad for task number one.
Right.
So that pollen floating around with the symbolism of this like nice, neat dinner dress, kind of like on a branch, but floating. Kind of the wind is floating it in the giving life to it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty. It's one of those moments like he knows what he's doing.
Yep.
He knows how to work camera.
He
Like,
knows what he's doing. He knows to get better.
he's not just drawing up stuff. Like he knows how to he knows what he's doing. And I always love those moments in films where the director takes like 30 seconds to be like, you know what makes me a great director? I can shoot anything and it looks fucking awesome.
So
And
true.
he just shot a dress in the wind with some pollen floating around, and I was like, that is amazing.
Yep. Yep. That's what he does. That's what it is.
All
There
right,
we go.
so
We going in. We pretty much give a high rating
3
of
minutes.
this. Is all you gave me was Guillermo del Toro Stroke Fest. I was going to just talk good things about this. Next week, I'm going to give you. Oh, I'm gonna give you Baskin. Yeah.
Can we like push this one out just a little bit further?
Why? You just got another easy one. I'm sick of giving you easy ones.
God,
Baskin for next week.
I didn't want to do this. All right, I'm gonna pick something completely fun, and we're gonna go one of my favorite genre movies that doesn't get enough appreciation, and we're going to Kung Fu Flicks. We're gonna watch the 36 Chamber of the Shaolin. Done.
36 Chamber of the Shaolin.
Shaolin. Yeah, we're gonna. I need to have something fun to offset whatever Baskin is, because I believe I'm the one who recommended Baskin for you.
You said something about it before. You said it seemed like something you would like, and I went and saw it, and you're gonna see it now. That's all it is.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's do it to it.
All right, there you go. This has been Brother Sip and Talk Shit, and here we go with another one. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll hit him and we'll hit him with another one. Ha 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 ha.
Peace, love, and prosperity.
What he said.
não.